Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, the voice of bodybuilding. We are back in for episode number 2 of the Female Truths of Bodybuilding Roundtable series. So Sara and Romana join me again. We obviously kicked off with the first episode with the 3 of us, and it's what the people want. So now we continue with monthly episodes, and we have Emily Wilkinson, who has been on the podcast before, very good friend of mine, and she is a nutrition and appetite coach, but also, you know, you're a bodybuilder yourself, and you've been doing this for a number of years also. So between the 4 of us, we've clocked up a fair amount of time of this crazy
fellow team full bore. Shameless
Yeah.
plug. Shameless plug.
Should get the banner, yeah.
I did try and find a full bore t-shirt, but it's buried somewhere, and yeah.
Do you know what? I asked for one and Robbie never gave me one. How rude.
To be fair, I just nicked Dan's.
Oh, yeah, I should do that. Just nick his.
For sure. And now, actually, as well, we're going to have a bit of an update into the WPD world. Obviously, there was a post on Instagram. Sorry, you put it in our group, and then Romana had seen that, and Dan had commented. Do you guys know any more for any of the WPD girls listening?
I don't really know much more from what we said about it, apart from apparently it's amateur, it's not pro. Is that right, Ro? Do you know? Is it amateur? Is it everything? Like, I don't know.
The way I read the post was it didn't seem to specify, but the caveat was I was on holiday and not feeling very well when it was kind of going on, so I didn't. It's AJ Kelly from Female Bodybuilding Channel replied to Dan's comment. So it's on Female Bodybuilding Channel. I think it's about one of the American shows. It's quite recent. It was, so if you want to have a look at it, it's there. But yeah, AJ then asked if Dan and I would do a short video about it. And it is that kind of like, if you're going to put shows in such a midpoint of the year, it is really hard for us.
Yeah,
because it's basically one way or another, you're on cycle for the majority of the year and a low body fat state for the majority of the year.
Yeah,
it's like, do you want healthy competitors who have longevity in the sport, or do you want us to burn out and be able to do 2 seasons and then retire?
Yeah, I said this to someone yesterday. I was talking to you about it, and they were like every time, like I've stepped on stage, and I know this for a lot of other girls, when they've been like, yeah, we need to be bigger, you need to be bigger in these areas, but then we want you to compete, but have the time off, but then you can't because we want you to compete. Like, it's completely like, you don't know where
Stay relevant.
Yeah, in it, exactly. Yeah, but then you're asking me to be bigger, but then you want me to be on stage. Like, how we can't do both at the same time, you know what I mean?
And they want you to be lean and shredded all year round as well.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise it's like, we don't want your off-season body.
Yeah. Someone said to me the other day, they were like, you realize you're heavier than, I think it's like, you know, Miss Beast on Instagram, Melissa Bach, I think her name is, lovely lady, but she's shredded all year round. And someone said to me, you're heavier than her, you could beat her. It's like, yeah, but I'm not in nearly the same condition as she is. Oh, yeah, she's 5 pounds over her stage weight. Yeah, I'm on 60 kilos on stage, and I'm 83 kilos this morning. Like, I think there's a little bit of a difference. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and there's no context to what her height is. She could be 4'5". We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, mad, isn't it? But yeah, like, it just seems like they want one thing from us, and then they want another thing from us, but they want to see new, improved physique. So I know there's quite a few bigger names that are out of action this year. Like Anne is out of action because she had an operation.
Emily, I think.
Yeah, Emily.
Well.
Yeah. And then obviously I don't know what's going on with Barbara. You know, the French Barbara. I don't know what she's doing.
She was cracking some bodybuilding poses, I think.
Yeah, I saw that the other day, but
I don't know if you guys saw AJ's story, and then I reposted it, but Dan's analogy just fucking cracked me up. He was like, it's like setting up a lemonade stand in December and wondering why nobody wants to buy it. It's because it's fucking freezing and nobody wants ice cold lemonade.
No one wants lemonade.
It's like, it's just like, having done May and June shows last year, because I like literally, you know, did not think qualifying was even within my reach. So it was like, test the waters. And then having to do that Olympia prep, it fucked me up.
Yeah, it does.
You know, it just fucked me up.
I think if people want to do earlier shows, then make sure that they're early enough that you can come out and then go back in later down the line. Because that's what I'm going to do next year, where I'll do really early shows. Then it allows me to come out of it, come off drugs for a bit, and then go back in later down the line. But like with you, Ro, when you had that time length where you couldn't really come out of it, couldn't really go, it was like a weird kind of situation to be in, wasn't it? So, but yeah, I totally get where Dan and where you and Dan are coming from, and just in general, where it's more like they can't just have people competing all the time every year when they're expecting to see improvements. You know what I mean?
But I said it on my video, the caveat is that obviously I don't know the intricate workings of what the promoters have to deal with and what other balls they're juggling. So it would be really useful to understand that as a competitor and be like, well, actually, this is why we do that. But it's always just like, it felt very personal in that post. It was like, you athletes have disappointed us again by not turning up.
Yeah.
Like, not to name names, but I'm sure everyone who's looked at the post knows, but that individual person who put that post up, he's just notorious for being like that. Because I've run into it. Have you met him before, Ro?
No, not that I'm aware of. No,
yeah,
I don't know who it is.
But I don't know, but
message me, let me know.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I will. After the pod. Yeah, he's notorious for being a bit like that, apparently. Well, every time I've met him, he's a bit like, whoa.
Hey, you said about staying relevant as a sort of side tangent, but Emily and I actually spoke about this, about, you said about staying lean all year round. And of course, the promotion of trying to have a longer growth phase if possible is what the message is a lot of the time. And Emily and I spoke about it on a podcast before, when athletes are sort of really hyped and they're in prep and they tag the federation and the federation shares it. But then when you're in off season, I think that you maybe think you're going to get a similar response, and actually we found that it doesn't always get reshared and you're not sort of on the periphery of the federation anymore, didn't we, Emily? We've sort of noticed that.
Yeah, and it's this disconnect, isn't it, between what as healthy as it can be versus what's present in social media. And exactly like you said, there's no sustainability in that, because so you can be present all year round, but you're also going to compete 2 seasons and that's it. Or you can dip in and out, which is just the right thing to do. And I don't see why they don't understand that. Also, what are they saying? Are they saying that people are entering and not turning up, or people just aren't entering?
They're just not entering.
Yeah, so then it's clear, surely, that there's a reason why people aren't entering.
But then also, like, it's one thing that people know is a problem, but they don't want to talk about. It's the money. A lot of the ladies will put more money into it than we would not.
It's until 3 weeks ago, I was still trying to do all this bodybuilding whilst whilst sustaining working a job that had nothing to do with bodybuilding, because you need to make a living somehow. And I can't be the only competitor like that. I know, Sara, obviously you took the plunge a lot longer ago than I did, but it's fucking, it ain't cheap, is it?
No.
And then hair, makeup, tan, pro card. I looked at my fucking pro cards if I want to renew it, and it's like $275, and you don't even get.
Is it? Fucking
you
hell.
don't. But wait, you used to get the little paper card with that price.
Yeah.
They're now saying if you want the physical card, you have to pay an extra $50.
Oh, what?
Paper. Like, and I'm
Can
like,
they not just email it to you? You can print it out yourself for like 5p.
I'm so sentimental that I'm like, but I want the paper. It's fucking ridiculous.
It is expensive though, because it's like, until you actually do it, you don't really realize. I mean, there's two sides of it. Sometimes, you get into bodybuilding, you're doing it and you don't maybe realize, and you've got enough money to do that. Other times I've heard of many people that have got like partway through and then they're like, holy fuck, I can't afford this. They've already done part of a prep and it's like, I just cannot warrant it. And I think that for sure, if we can as coaches, like I give like a rough outline of things that are be considered for a prep and then show day, as like a well ahead of a prep. If someone's asking me, okay, so can we do a prep? I don't know if there's any other ways really that you can sort of give that warning, because essentially it's how successful is someone as well if they do get a pro card, etc., for sure.
Yeah, it's like I had to put off my pro debut when I was in figure because I was meant to do a June show and I couldn't afford it, so I had to push it back to September. And I did September, and then 6 weeks later I did Hungary. And I lived on my own at the time, working for the NHS. You've got all your bills, everything like that, plus the cost of flights. And this was during COVID, so you had the additional expense of all the fucking PCR bollocks that went with it. And I got back from Hungary after my second figure show, and it was about 5 days until payday. I think I had £6 in my bank account. £6.
Reminds me of my teenage years.
It's like I'm a 36-year-old woman with £6 in my bank account, because it's just, you've got to get Ubers everywhere. When you're abroad, you've got to buy the food, and you kind of, you want to make sure that you're not buying something that is going to upset your stomach. So you have to kind of be a bit cautious with that. Or you have to pay for extra luggage allowance to take your protein, cream of rice, all of that shit with you, because that ain't light, is it?
Yeah. And even if we're winning money in shows, that will just about cover the costs. If well, not even really. Like, I think when I came second in Reno, I had £800, and that was one flight. Do you know what I mean?
Well, out of the 2K I won at Empro, it was something, by the time it got converted to pounds and the tax was taken off of it, it was 1,500 quid.
Yeah, I remember talking to you about it when we had a conversation. You were just like, "Yep, that went in about 5 seconds."
And even the Olympia, they give you $700 towards your flight, but your flight doesn't cost $700 worth when you're coming from the UK. It's fucking helpful, but there's still a gap there.
We had a look yesterday, and to go from Manchester to Vegas and back again, it's like 750 quid each, and then you've got obviously your hotel, and they're not cheap. Vegas is not cheap to stay in, so it's nothing, is it?
No.
It's really difficult as well to, I guess, sometimes from a coaching standpoint, I've certainly found, I say difficult, but when you're speaking to an inquiry and they maybe want to go into a prep, and then it's like, so this is roughly what it's going to cost, plus obviously the coaching fee. So you go through, X amount of coaching for the prep. And the reason I say it's difficult, you've got to, of course, say about the importance of a coach after the show. And I think there's sometimes that perception that someone will have a coach for the prep, and then that's all they need. And then it's like, from a coaching standpoint, it's like, I'm not just trying to get your money here, but you do need to have a coach, obviously, after the show as well. And I think that a lot of people can run out of money and they lose that as well. And as we know, post-show, sometimes maybe you need it more from the coaching standpoint, because it can be really tough. But I don't know if you've come across this where you're sort of having to outline that as well, and sometimes I don't think people understand.
I've been in the situation where literally I landed in Hungary for my second pro show, and the coach I was with at the time, their admin person, I got a WhatsApp saying, as of next week, coaching fees are increasing by 50 quid. And I was like, I can't afford that. Like, I was at my limit already. I could have continued to pay for the coaching fee post show, but that extra 50 quid was out, and I had to have that conversation. I mean, and that's when I ended up working with Tom. But it's, it's real. And I spent, I think it was 2 weeks between leaving my previous coach and getting set up with Tom. And it was very much like, I don't really know what to do here. And I'm not a big post-show kind of, I'm not one of these people that goes out and eats the world, but it's still very hard to not, even with your baseline meals, over feed yourself, basically. It's really hard. I think another important part is that post-show, you're likely to feel quite emotionally, mentally lost.
Drained.
It's like all that hype's gone, the post-show blues. And then to not have somebody there to make yourself accountable, to make yourself stick to routine, to keep those wheels turning, that's important.
Absolutely.
And then you have the people around you, obviously, that are like, oh, you're not doing that thing anymore, right? Okay, so let's go for some meals or whatever else. It's useful for me because Matt understands it, but previously, like relationships, aside from intimate relationships, but friends as well, most of my friends are bodybuilders now, so it's a bit easier, or they understand because it's been so many years. But I used to find almost like there'd be times where I'd feel like, am I eating for enjoyment here, or am I eating to appease others? Is this actually what I'd want to do? And then if you haven't got anyone to talk to about it, it can feel almost quite overwhelming and lonely. However, everyone's different post-show. Like you say, Ro, it's like, you know, not necessarily overeating, but maybe not knowing exactly how much to have. It's, yeah.
And I don't know whether Emily can offer more insight into this, but there's also that introduction of unfamiliar food sources when you have been just eating chicken, rice, oats, cream of rice for 20 odd weeks. And having just spent a week in an all-inclusive in Ibiza, eating things that I'm not used to, it's not fun.
You just develop these intolerances. So you see it a lot with gluten. So if people are cutting out carbohydrates, then all of a sudden all they want is bread, and then stomach is in pain, they feel sick, they're holding water. So, and this is the thing, like you weigh yourself the next day after your post-show meal and you're like 5 kilos up, and of course it's not fat, but the immediate thought is, oh my god, I've just put loads of fat on. And having someone who's there, who's a coach, who's like, no, this is normal, this water retention is normal, this is what we need to do, and this is how we can get rid of it, is so important. So if you stopped coaching at that point, you're just going to be lost. You're going to feel so lost.
And that mental, I think, I don't know, obviously can't speak for men, but I think there is, whether we realize it or not as females, there is this massive pressure to have that emotional attachment to the scale weight, and that it's kind of, even though we're bodybuilders, it's still kind of ingrained in us from children that you can't weigh this, you can't increase your body weight by this. So you've then got the mental head fuckery of, holy shit, the scales are saying this, oh my god, I must be piling on the pounds, I can't be doing this. And then there's that temptation to go back into a restriction when actually what your body does need is that food.
It's that whirlwind, isn't it? Because we've sort of learned growing up that you should be smaller is better, that's what's going to make you happy. Then we get into bodybuilder and we want to get bigger, so we're trying to unwind that and really know that actually putting weight on is a good thing because that's helping us towards our goals. But then we're going back to smaller is better, you need to be losing weight every week, and then we're switching back again, and it's mad. Like what we have to cope with psychologically.
I was reading a book while I was on holiday by Laura Bates called Girl Up, and she talks a lot about how that is, you know, as a woman you're taught to not take up space, to be a size 8, to be skinny, and that's where what your self-worth is kind of linked to as a female. And she's just basically going, it's a fucking bullshit klaxon. Like, it's your worth is not based on your scale weight. Although she's got these little illustrations in her book of, it sounds really weird, dancing vaginas. And while I was on holiday, Dan had gone to the sauna, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go sit with my feet in the pool and read my book, not knowing that some of the pages had fallen out of my book. I've got my headphones in, I've walked up to the pool. Next thing I know, I've got a tap on the shoulder, and this woman hands me this page with an illustrated dancing vagina on it. She must have just been like, what is this woman reading? Like, what is, like...
Here is your vagina book here.
Oh my god, that is so hard.
It's not only just vaginas, it's dancing vaginas.
They had top hats.
That's what
I took a screenshot to us. It's just like, oh, here we go. Let's see if I can get it up. Oh, is it going to come into focus?
You can't see the outline of said vagina.
Yeah,
people who are listening to this on Spotify must be like, what in the fuck are they doing?
They had canes. So the vaginas had top hats, canes, and high heels on. I'll put it on Instagram for people to have a look at. Like I said, filter is well and truly off.
We don't need a filter on these sessions. Of course, we're bringing it in real. Sara, how are you post-show? Because we obviously spoke about on our pod when we first did our pod together, and you said obviously the first couple of seasons, as we can all relate, it's a little bit wild. But how do you find it as you've sort of progressed through for yourself? Do you just listen to Tom and you feel good, or?
I completely go the other way, so I won't eat. So I'll just, because I get very attached to being shredded. But over the time, like for example, I'll come off stage, and obviously anyone knows that when you're off stage, I'm just super tired. I just want to go to bed, have a fucking glug of water, and then just go bed. But typically after I finish, I'll go home, have some steak and rice or whatever, and just go to bed. Because after a long day, you know, like you had your makeup at like 4 when you were in Toronto, right? So
Yeah, I
they're
think
long
something
days.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. They're long days, you're on off stage all day, you're covered in tan, all that. And by the time I come on stage, I just kind of want to I want to chill out and go to bed. But I too typically maybe go
Good sheep
to
dip.
what's that?
Good sheep dip is what I
Yeah,
feel like.
yeah, yeah,
A
innit?
good sheep. Yeah.
But yeah, I typically, as I kind of, those first couple shows, I would like binge quite bad. And then as I've kind of got more into bodybuilding and become more like a seasoned competitor, I've actually gone the other way. So I won't really eat. I'll just kind of, Tom will have to force me to eat a little bit. But once I get eating and I exactly know what I want to achieve in the next kind of upcoming phases, this is when it comes back round to the importance of having a goal. Because I'm very goal driven. So if Tom says, okay, we need to do this at X, Y, and Z, this is your feedback from shows, let's get on it. Here's the plan. Then I'm okay because I've got something to focus on. But if I'm left in the if I'm left in the gaff for a little bit of time, which isn't very often, but can be when you're waiting for like feedback and stuff,
Yeah.
I can be a little bit kind of a bit of a loose cannon when it comes to just not eating. But it's better as time's gone over. Like, you know, I have you know, the support that I need and stuff like that. But yeah, the binging days are over. Instead, I just want to stay shredded for forever.
That's
But then
I
once
think the other important aspect of having a coach, especially one that you've worked with for a long time.
Mm.
It sounds like from what you're saying, Sarah, almost Tom knows, well, he does know your headspace, he knows your psyche, he knows how to get what he needs out of you.
Yeah.
Like for me personally, I need to just rest. I need a good week to 10 days out of the gym, not training at all. That's what I need. But for
Yeah.
you, it sounds like you're one of those people that needs to get back in the gym
Yeah.
as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
And it's like having that influence in your life to give you that direction. I need someone to say, you're okay. It's okay to rest.
Yeah.
You don't have to get straight back into the gym. Whereas maybe you need somebody to go, right, come on, pull your socks up. This is what
Yeah.
we're going to do. Let's get some direction back in. Let's get some routine back in.
Yeah, bang on. I mean, like, I've been working with Tom for 9 years now, so it's kind of like, you know, he can look at me and know exactly what I'm thinking, even by not saying a word. So yeah, very much come back for shows, do what I need to do in regards to feedback and start improving straight away. Just because I think if I just get left to my own devices, I just go into like that, you know, that post-show blue phase where I just get super depressed. And as kind of like drugs coming down, you think, well, you know, obviously I had quite a nasty experience when I just kind of came off all drugs and then everything was just fucked and I just felt horrible. And then when you start tapering things down, it's still hard, but you just got to kind of get back into the motion. And then once I'm back into the motion of things and body weight starts climbing and I get kind of over that, you know, you have that hill, and once you're over the top of that hill, it's easy. Like now I couldn't give a fuck, but like it's just getting up that hill and over it, that's the hard part.
Yeah, I think as well for a lot of the listeners, I mean, speaking about it more, people sort of asking about how to almost premeditate post show in regards to like relationships and how they're going to feel with food, etc. And if it is the first timer, it's sometimes quite difficult to translate how this will feel because as you've just both outlined, it's person dependent. I personally like to get back I'm in the gym the next day as well. And I know lots of people that do the same as you, Mana. So it is so person dependent, but it's so important, I would say, above all else, to be honest with your coach. And yes, you can premeditate to a certain degree. Okay, so this is roughly what the reverse out is going to start to look like. This is what the aim is. But I also find that initially in this off season, when my goal was health, I was like, what the fuck's health? Like, I don't want health. I'm a bodybuilder. It was quite hard for me to get my head around actually what we're working on is sorting out your blood markers, sorting out your cycle, working on health and feeling better. That felt like I was in no man's land at the start. So I did the same as you, sorry. You know, I wanted to stay lean for longer than required. So it's quite difficult. And what you said, obviously working with a coach for a long period of time, this is such a good message because you earn the trust, right? And you build the relationship to then be honest.
And that's the thing, like, it's like we all know that we have to come off drugs at some point, right? We can't just keep continuing coming them in. And I think it comes down to being like, right, actually, you know what? I need to get healthy now. I can't just stay like this forever. And I remember at the back end of Alicante being like, I feel just like a walking pharmacy. Like, this is horrendous. And I don't use really that much, but for it, you know, like when you have that extended period of time, you know, on PEDs and stuff, you just feel like, fucking, I hate this now. Like, it's horrible. Like, I feel like I could just be yellow, you know? So, like,
I get little
yeah.
signs. Like I remember I bashed my shin on the Olympia prep about 8 weeks out, and that just wasn't healing. It's like I needed that. So I needed that recovery time. I needed to just stop. It's like my body was putting so much energy into healing the muscular DOMs that I was having and repairing that soft tissue within my muscles from all the cardio, from all the training, that stuff like my skin and even little things like if I got a spot, that just wouldn't heal either.
I've heard this before.
That's a sign to me that it's like, right, time to pull
I
it
think
back.
It's an understanding that I think we need to have, that it's not just about being lean and losing weight and gaining weight, but actually when you are that lean, you're malnourished, that you're just not getting enough of anything in, so your body's not going to heal. And coming out of a prep, like Sarah, it is hard to know what health is, and also blood markers are important, but realistically you're going to have to wait X number of weeks, 6 to 10 weeks, before you get those done so you can actually see the changes. And when in prep you've been analysing everything day to day, you want to continue that. So that 6 to 8 weeks seems, 6 to 10 weeks, whatever, it seems like quite far away. But knowing that your mindset has to switch to, okay, what do I want future me to look like and feel like? I want to be able to heal quicker. I need to not be malnourished. I want longevity in the sport, and being able to handle a pro show. But I also think we sometimes put a bit too much pressure and emphasis on ourselves. So preempting, especially as a first timer, you can go so far as knowing that you've got the support there. You can have food plans written, but because you don't know how you're going to handle it, sometimes when you get everybody say, some people saying they need the rest, some people saying they need to get back in the gym, some people saying they need to follow a food plan, some people saying they need to just be off and do what they want for 3 days, it can be really overwhelming. You start to create what you're going to be like. And it's almost putting pressure on yourself to be like that, and then you rebel against it. So almost just having to breathe into it and just see what your body does and how you feel about it can sometimes be a better approach.
Something that I really craved after that length of time of restriction, this is post Olympia, it wasn't about eating every fucking thing in sight. It was about eating things that somebody else wasn't telling me that I had to eat. So for me, that looked like actually like not measuring my oats, not measuring my chicken and rice. I'm still eating the same food sources. I'm eating them when I want, and I'm not obsessed with the scale weight. Just taking that mental pressure off was enough. And that, to me, that stops me from reaching for those foods that are going to give you that quick fix but make you feel like shit and create that water kind of cycle and bloat and stomach distress. It's just about like chilling the fuck out for me.
Yeah. And that's such a positive eating behavior, because again, it's this reliance on the scale all the time. So making sure that you've weighed your oats to the gram, weighed your rice to the gram, you can take that away and be at peace, and essentially intuitively eat the things that you know that you can digest, that you're going to enjoy, and they're going to fill you up in the amount that you feel like you need it, is really positive, and that's going to get you on the road to recovery. But when you've got to be still so focused on scale weight, you're just adding in another level of control that actually at this point it might be good to try and take that away.
Again, person dependent, isn't it? And I think what's great is when you've got experience in the sport, you've got education as to, like, if you saw a chicken breast, we've spoken about this before, Emily, on podcasts, like I could go, okay, so that's that much protein, that's about that much carbs, that's about that much fat, and you analyze a plate like very easily when you've done it for so long. So actually, like you say there, Emily, if Marnie, you look at something, you go, okay, so that's roughly going to be a portion that would satiate me of my oats, and then you put your whey in, or however you do it, and it's like taking that mental stress off for that first period of time. And then sometimes, you can ease yourself back and actually go, okay, so a teaspoon of peanut butter or something like this, and get to grips with how you're feeling mentally off the back of a season. And obviously that season for you, Mana, was pretty intense. So it's like the mental bandwidth is fucking absolutely smashed. So it's like, how can I look at my life and make things maybe a touch easier with those types of things? Because we know what it's like weighing your food every day and everything. It's like you got to be in that rhythm.
I think it's
sometimes
also like
how the fuck do people have like breakfast breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they don't call it meal 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm like, how do people live like
that was really hard in the all-inclusive. Like breakfast, lunch,
one,
dinner.
like...
And Dan and I were like, where's meal 2 and meal 4? What do we do? But it's something I've learned from that post-show phase is that just because it's there doesn't mean you have to eat all of it if you're full, and B, that food's not going anywhere. So, for example, I don't know if you bought a packet of Squares bars because you're really craving a Squares bar,
and you're a bodybuilder,
and and you've had that one, and you're like, oh, that was nice. You don't have to eat all 4 of them at once. Like they'll still be there at 4 o'clock this afternoon if you're snackish, if you're peckish, if you want it. It's not going anywhere. You don't have to force it down to the point where your stomach's like out here and you're feeling so full you can't move, because your stomach is like
it feels horrible. Like when you do in the earlier days when I have I've eaten I have quite a good capacity with food, and I've just kept eating because off back of the show it's like, okay, I'm at a meal and then a couple of starters, couple of mains, and we're all sharing things and whatever, and then when you get that like dump in the stomach, maybe only 30 minutes after or a little bit longer, you fit holy fucking shit, like you can't move, and it's like everything's going to, it's like a baby, obviously they call it a food baby, don't they? It's like everything's going to this child, and you're like, I just don't know what to do, all tanned, and you've got like a 4-hour journey home, fucking brilliant. But I feel like almost making those, whether we label it as a mistake or whatever, doing that, like I never have any inclination to go back there. Like I could not think of anything worse. But people that are listening that are first timers, it's hard, isn't it? Because there's a on social media, your mates backstage are having loads of stuff. It's difficult.
There's also this culture of posting that post-show donut, that post-show cookie. You've got your bikini on, you've just stepped off stage, and you're there with a cronut, like stuffing it in your face. And
that's one of my biggest icks.
Okay,
not
just me.
I personally, like Sara said, I want a big fucking glass of water, or a Lucasade, like the still Lucasade Sport, or some EAs, and I want chicken rice and almond butter.
I
want proper foods. I don't tend to eat much chicken and rice on show day, so it's that I want something that's not been made with hot water and mixed. Wasn't cooked.
I don't know, it gives off like this completely wrong vibe. Like I think people that are like, oh, I've already booked where I'm having my post-show meal, and they're like 8 weeks out, and it's like, what are you doing this for? Are you doing this for just the post-show? Like where do your like things lie? Like for me, like I don't give a fuck, but I'm not thinking about what I'm doing after show. I'm thinking about the show, because that's what your priority should be, not about, oh yeah, I can't wait to have this, or don't do it then. No one's forcing you to do it, so don't do it. Like that's, and I know some people be like, oh, that's really mean, but it's the truth. And it's like someone who would die for bodybuilding, like I would give everything to bodybuilding, and for you to be like, oh, I can't wait to, just fuck off then. Like you don't have to do it. If you're wanting that food so much, then go and have it. If you want to do that, then do that, but you need to sort your priorities out. Your stage is your priority at the moment, but you're too busy thinking about what's after. And like people that post their like post-show donuts and stuff, I just think it's really cringe. I just think it's a big ick. Like
do you think that's changed through the increase in use of social media? Just so when I first competed back in 2017, I didn't really use Instagram that much, and I competed with Alex, my husband, and he was finding like bars of chocolate that he wanted from the US and importing them, and he had so much chocolate. But I don't really remember going for a post-show meal. We just had these different bars of chocolate, and to be honest, they were all shit. So we sort of tried little bits of them and then just threw them away, and that was kind of it over. But then going into my next season, so 2019, that's when I'd started to use social media, and that's when my feeds were starting to become crammed with like the donuts and the burgers and things like that. And it's almost like this pressure of, well, you need to have something post-show because the next story has to be what I'm eating. Why? Like,
that's really interesting.
Upsets me.
I'm just thinking as we're talking, like Dan and I will go for a meal post-show, but I tend to, it will always be a burger because I know that will digest well. And Dan books it for me. It's
I also
he'll
put my
just
phone
Yeah.
aside. I want to be with my
Yeah.
close friends. You know, being for me, I've always found, and linking into what all of you were saying there, when we're in a place of influence or however we want to talk about, you know, people are watching us and what we're doing. And I think it's super important that my clients are seeing, and podcast listeners, even my friends, you know, that are seeing, I don't want what I put like a donut or whatever, and then that to almost spur someone else on to do that because I've done it. Now, I'm not saying everyone's going to copy me and that I'm someone everyone watches, but I still feel like if one person was to see me do certain things post show, it's potentially validating certain behaviors, and they may not be in the right place for that. They might be a first timer, they might not have any experience here. And I want to be with, you know, like me and Matt were just in the hotel room together after my last show, and it's like, I don't want to be on my fucking phone, you know, it's been enough.
Yeah.
It's like,
I found it after Toronto, I found it really, really hard because I wasn't expecting to place where I placed, and my Instagram and WhatsApps were just going off. And my first coach who got me into bodybuilding and best friend and her husband were in Toronto as well. They just happened to be on a holiday, and she dragged her husband to the show. So we went for that post-show burger. And I found it really, really hard to be present with those very important people with this thing in the background. Like, I mean, I don't have any notifications turned on, but I felt like I had to respond immediately, right then and then, to everything that was going on. And then after Empro, I spoke to the important people that I wanted to speak to, and then I think I put my phone on airplane mode, so Dan and I could still take some photos and be present together and capture those moments without that constant influx of other people. And it's nothing against those people, like whether they're clients, whether they're people you know on Instagram, whether they are friends, but it's about being present in the moment with the people that are physically there with you, rather than staring at a screen and ignoring that physical person. And, you know, generally those people that are with you post show are your people. They're your important people. They've watched you, they've supported you, they've done whatever they need to do to help you. You need to be present for them, to give back to them for the 20 weeks that you've just had to have them along. Like, they've just been along for the ride. Like, you've not been present. It's now time to be there with them.
It's like where your values lie, isn't it? So if you finish your show and your value is on those supportive people that are physically with you, then actually that's where your focus goes. So the post-show meal, so you go for a burger and you enjoy the burger because it's something bigger. So it's become a high value meal because there's this social presence around you of the people that you actually care about. Whereas if you're on your phone selfie and you biting into a donut or a cronut or whatever it is, there's no value on the food. There's just value on the people that you don't even know that are watching those stories, and that makes you eat that food quicker, and you don't get that same like satiation, the same enjoyment out of it, and then you're on to the next, and then you're on to the next, and before you know it, it's just exploded.
Yeah, I like that thought process actually. I think as well, it's almost like a lot of the time you see people do it and they maybe think it's what the people want to see, you know, that I do this to be able to eat this food. I do a prep to be able to then do this in an off season and what have you. It's really difficult for me to watch because, like I say, I know that people are going to be looking at that. And I think it's probably from my own past of when I first got into it. I thought that you had to have all the 0-calorie sauces in the fucking world. I thought that every bikini girl did that. I thought that every bikini girl ate like an absolute twat post show because it's all over social media. So I'm thinking, I want to be like that. I want to be a bikini girl. I didn't know anything about PEDs. I didn't know anything about anything. And I just felt this constant pressure to be doing, you know, I started using the 0-calorie sauces on every meal and the sweetener and all things like that actually now I pay the price for because we know the impact on the GI, etc., etc. And a lot of the things came from, like you say, Emily, social media, what we see and what we maybe think that we should do as maybe more bikini. I don't know if you know your categories are or
I used to spend about 70 quid on skinny syrups a month.
I
okay.
think we've all kind of
this
gone
was
through that phase.
this was before I knew about cream of rice, so I was eating ground rice from Morrison's. So I'd use the skinny syrup to flavour the ground rice. But something to bear in mind if you are a first timer or even have done some shows and you are using those skinny syrups, and I don't know if Emily can add some science to this, but this is just my experience. But when I prepped, my blooming sorry, my laptop did something. When I prepped using those skinny syrups, I didn't notice until I took them out how my lower abdomen was still a little bit distended, even though I was peeled to the bone. I still had this little kind of lower abdomen pouch.
Yeah.
Removing those sugar or sugar substitute sources, and I can control my midsection so much better.
Yeah, so when they're taking the sugar out, they're replacing them with sugar alcohol, so different types of sweeteners and things. And because it's like a semi-solid, you need something with bulk. So if sugar takes up this much room in a product, when you remove it, you've got to replace it with something else. So in like a Diet Coke, you replace it with water and then a tiny little bit of sweetener. But in something that's a solid or a semi-solid, you're replacing it with a bulk sugar replacer, and they're the ones that tend to cause a bit of bloating. So you're only meant to have a certain amount per day, which if
Not
you
half
had
a
like
bottle.
yeah, but if you had like your replacement ketchup or your replacement jam and you had your little dollop or slice of toast with a little bit of jam on it, it's fine. But the problem is you're having it with every meal, and of course we're not eating 3 times a day, we're eating 6 times a day, and they're 0 calories, so you're putting on as much as possible because you're starving. So you're building way past that tolerance, and it's going to be different for everybody, but it is pretty common, like water retention, bloating, general discomfort. And so personally, I would say to people, it's better just to not use them at all. Don't just try and take them out 2 weeks pre-show. Just don't use them. Don't get used to needing that extra thing with your food.
Yeah.
They like fucked me up so bad a couple of years ago, and then the company sent me a load of them, and I was like, I literally can't eat these.
I think actually from like the food pathology standpoint as well, what you were saying, Sara, about like if you're thinking of the food post-show 8 weeks out, maybe this isn't the sport for you, right? And then additional things that contribute to that, I feel like what I was trying to do is make every meal taste nice, and everyone else was doing it. I thought, right, this is the way. This is the way. So, I'm putting these skinny syrups.
Frozen, or is it me?
Yeah, she's
No,
frozen.
it's her.
Okay. You back in my room?
Oh, that was a really cool facial expression to be frozen in. That was akin to the one like that, Sara. Do you remember?
Oh, that was so funny.
It's like every meal I was trying to make taste good. So like, it becomes quite plain and you're just maybe having salt or whatever. Now, I absolutely love just having salt. Like I could not think of anything worse than having the skinny syrups and stuff. Because when I went back to tasting them after I came away from them, I was like, they taste like shit. Now, I don't know if that's just me, but then it's like, I also relate this back to, I want my physique to be the best possible presentation for stage. If I'm having something like that in my prep as well, it's like, maybe I'm taking away from, the preps. It's hard, yes, but why am I trying to make it taste good when essentially you're going deeper and deeper into a deficit? But I also think then post-show, when we transfer that across, you're trying to get things to taste good. So what do? You replace the 0-calorie maple syrup with full maple syrup. And then all of those, you maybe have this association to, I'm in off season now, but I still want the sauces. I still want the flavor. Even things like that transfer across the phases. I know people that height of off season have still the skinny syrups, and I'm not trying to bash it, everyone to their own, whatever, whatever you want to do. But
I live on monsters on prep, like 1 monster a day. It's still like
that
it's
one
a similar
monster
thing.
Change. Just like the whole monster, bang it.
But it's also the bubbles kind of when you're doing your fasted cardio. It's like, oh, my stomach's got something in it.
Yeah, the bubbles. My secret during prep is to have sparkling water and just sugar-free squash. That's banging, that is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys have got any thought processes there as well with, utilizing a lot of sugar-free stuff in off season. I feel like maybe it's not needed, but people do still because of the gram and what have you.
Nah.
Again, each to their own, but I don't. I mean, in your off season, you can flavor your food. Like you can do so much more. So unless you are that person that grew up always having to have tomato ketchup, I mean, just go for the lower sugar version rather. In your off season, it's calories, but does it make that much difference if you're having a little bit here and
Because
there.
you're not
Do you
using
really
like the
need to
whole
think?
bottle on one meal.
Yeah, and also you've got to think of price because they're not cheap, and we've already said
Yeah.
like
See how
competing's
expensive the
flipping
Heinz ketchup is
expensive.
nowadays? So
Mm.
expensive.
Actually, I don't have ketchup. I'm that person. I'm like a bad person.
I'm not a ketchup person either.
Matt thinks I've got something wrong with me. He's like, why don't you like ketchup? I'm like,
I just know.
I'm
I'm same as you. Bit of salt on my chips.
It's so vinegary. The smell of the vinegar makes me feel sick. Like even in off season, like in prep, I can't smell it, and in off season, Dan loves it, and I'm just like.
Do any of you use like the skinny syrups or the low calorie stuff in a prep or an off season, or you just in a prep you suck it up in an off season?
So I actually don't like them. So I'm considered like a super taster. So I can taste like the metallic-y aftertaste that you get from the sweetness. So I mean, you might judge me now, but I was telling Sarah the other day, I don't like protein bars. I'd much rather have a protein shake and a Freddo because I don't like fake chocolate. I can taste the difference.
A super taster. That you should put that on your bio on Instagram.
No, it's
this is what. So when I worked in product technology, I had to try products, and I was really good at it because I could taste if you took a bit of sugar out and you replaced it with a bit of fiber, I could tell the difference.
That's amazing.
It's cool,
I didn't even know that was a thing. Can you be a super smeller? Because for me, it smells like
probably, yeah.
And the smell of food, like if I'm in prep, even when I'm starving hungry, if Dan eats sauerkraut, it makes me feel sick.
Whoa.
Like the smell, I can't even, like, if he says to me, "Oh, can you just pop some sauerkraut on that meal for me?" I'm like, no, I'm not touching it.
The pig's
I'm not
pie?
touching it. I
No.
can smell just even undoing the top. It's like,
hey, this is reminding me
yeah.
of a lot of people use apple cider vinegar. Do you guys use that? I don't. I feel like it feels really harsh on my system, but I use
it. But obviously Alpha came out with a product with it in, so you don't have to do those horrible shots anymore.
Yeah. No. What I was going to say about like using sauces in off season, like your ketchup, your mayonnaise, your mustard, your barbecue sauce, I think if off season is that time to kind of take the foot off the kind of ultra restriction pedal, and if you're consistently putting a dollop on every meal, you're consistently eating the same amount of calories. So your coach is going to know, like, when they're adjusting your meal plan, if you're using sauces and you're consistently using them, they may not need to put them on your program, on your meal plan, but it's not ever fluctuating, it's not ever changing, so it's still there's still that ability for sort of tracking and oversight of it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's all of this, particularly for competitors, bodybuilding lifestyle as well, but what sits well, the thing is, we do a prep. Again, this is not, putting shade on anyone because we've all done it, right? But you literally have had all this plain food for X amount of time, and then you're expecting, mentally, you're like, yeah, fuck it, I'm going to have X, Y, Z. You're expecting physiologically the body to go, oh, these cakes are really nice. These donuts are really nice. They're going to settle really well. I'm going to have a nice night's sleep. Because mentally, you focus maybe on that as a thing. And it's so important what you said there earlier, Sara, with what are you doing this for if you're not focusing on that fucking stage? Like, why are you doing this to yourself? And when I meet people backstage, if I work backstage and they say, oh, I can't wait to go and do this. And I say, focus on the stage. This is really exciting. You've done a whole prep. And they're like, I just want to fucking get this over and done with. It's been hell. And I try and say, please, that's 10 minutes. You've done all of this for that.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily all their fault either. It's a lot of external shit.
Emotions are transient, and you might feel like you fucking hate the world for that 5 minutes, but then something will distract you, and before you know it, you've forgotten that you're fucking hating life right now.
Yeah. You miss that stage performance. It's after like maybe even 6 months, 10 months, however long you've done that for. This is what I really find difficult when there is so much pressure on competitors to go and eat these certain things post-show from that external stuff. And like I say, it's not maybe even coming from them. It's like, we have to do this. We're going to do this. You deserve this. You deserve a treat. It's the way it's framed sometimes. I think then people go into this mindset of, I deserve to overeat because I've put myself through this.
It's okay.
Yeah,
it's this reward thing.
Yeah,
It's
hard.
alongside the like digestive discomfort. I don't know about anybody else, but when you've had that period of time where you haven't had any sugar, like during a prep, eventually even honey gets pulled for me, and my only sort of sources of sugar are maybe what's in my Perform Whey or what's in my cream of rice. So you then have that cookie, you have that donut, and you go to bed thinking you're going to sleep like a baby because you've had carbs. But actually what my body's doing is my heart is like this because of the upregulation from all that sugar. It's like, I feel like my blood is sort of thick and pumping and my heart's pounding and I feel sweaty and I can't sleep because of it. I feel horrible.
I know.
There's a few people that like have a refeed, and I'm sure we've all gone through this, where you say you've like done zero carb for like 5 or 6 days and you have a refeed. The refeed actually makes you feel worse than what you were feeling when you were doing zero carb.
Yeah. I've
had days
and-
been like, why did we refeed?
And if you're that depleted, if your body fat is that low, it doesn't matter how much you put in your stomach. An hour later, you're still going to feel like shit again, because it's not a satiation thing. It's not a blood glucose thing. It's a body fat level thing. You're feeling like shit because as a female, you've got no body fat, and we're not designed that way. So whatever you put in your stomach, you're still going to feel like shit until those scales start creeping up and you start to actually lay down that body fat again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think when the important thing to you is food enjoyment, that's exactly the case. So you've got to allow yourself to let the scale weight go up, because then you actually can get food enjoyment and you don't feel like every hour you need to stuff your face with something that's going to make you feel sick.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of the hardest things for, I say we've said first timers obviously, but actually for me it was 2 or 3 seasons. It was like, I don't, it's funny, isn't it? You've got this like tunnel vision in a prep and you're boxing everything off, and then that goal's removed and it's suddenly like you can have things, as it were. It's tricky to sort of transfer that across to anyone's listening maybe in their first season. I do have a lot of people listen that are, you know, getting ready for their first show, but I think that the big take it steady and listen to your coach, but think of
I think a really important thing is to, as a coach, to not sugarcoat it and don't be like, it's going to be all right. I say it to everyone, like, it's going to be hard, and you've got to have it coming in. Like when people are like, you know, struggling at say like 10 weeks out, I'm like, it's going to get way harder and you just need to be ready for that. And post show isn't easy. Don't listen to anyone that says it is, because no matter how seasoned you are, no post show is ever easy. It becomes more, you know exactly what to expect, but it's never easy in any sense. Emotionally, you know, physically, however you think it is, it's never easy. So people that tell people, oh yeah, you know, prep's a breeze, like prep's easy, like post show, it's not. And that's coming from a group of women who are seasoned competitors. So whoever says that is lying out their arse on, thinking that they're hardcore bodybuilder because it's easy. It's not easy.
They're not being open, honest, and truthful. They're, I don't know. They're...
Yeah. And it's different every time. It, like you say, you get used to it, as it were. So like what's coming up. But still, you know, when you pursue the ranks and you're competing, and if you don't place and you were really gunning for it, or there's so many different scenarios, maybe you're not having the outlet of food, but psychologically it's fucking hard. Like, and that's male and female. From you sometimes as well maybe think I'll be okay with it, you know, based on as long as I've gone in with my best. But it's still, when you've won shows before and you've done well, you know, it'd be nice that we can have the trajectory of them winning every show and continuing to progress. But
I think that is the thing with social media nowadays, is there's too many people being these influencers that are thinking that things are easy and being like, yeah, I'm hardcore because I this is easy and I eat 7 meals a day and I don't have off plans and shit like that. And it's like, what are you like? Just be honest, because you're the people that are making this so much harder for everyone else. Like, just be like, yeah, like prep is hard. Like, oh, I had an off plan today, you know, with my family and that. Like, that's okay. Like, just stop portraying these things that are a complete lie and be honest with people, because then they're more relatable. And I just see that more and more often. Like, everyone is different, but don't lie through your teeth to think you're more hardcore than you're actually not.
Yeah. Because every guest I get on the podcast, that we talk about this, right? Like what you would foresee a pro being. And a lot of people say, and this is every time I've spoken about it on the podcast, and there's been so many different guests, that actually, you know, the pros, they may be portraying that they are on the letter for every part of the food plan, you know, they've never missed a beat, etc. But they don't maybe post the off-plan stuff and things like that. And why shouldn't they have off-plan? But why are they not posting that there is some level of balance there, you know?
Yeah. And I think as well, like everyone, like I posted this the other day, like everyone's off season is very different. Like how I approach my off season is very different to how Romana approaches her off season, how Ro approaches hers to yours, Emily. Like everyone has their own off season approach, and that's what works for them. Like, you know what I mean? And it's being open and honest. And if you want to post about it, then post about it. But don't be like, I don't have this, this, and this, just to make it look like you're harder than the rest. Do you know what I mean?
It's
And then
like my off season is pretty clean still, but
Yeah.
that's because of my digestive system.
Mm.
And like I said, like if I eat things that I'm not used to, it fucks me up. I get palpitations. I don't like it. I don't think I'm better than anybody else because I don't go and have Pizza Hut. It's like I'd love to be able to go and eat Pizza Hut,
Yeah.
but my body won't thank me for it. That's why I do it. It's not like I'm more hardcore because I spend the off season eating chicken and rice and oats.
Yeah.
It's like I'm too much of a delicate flower.
Yeah, like I had saw this post the other day about people being on meal plans. I haven't been on a meal plan in about 2-3 years because I like to have macros in my off season, even in my prep, because I like the flexibility. Prep's a bit different. I'll eat the same thing, but when I'm in off season, I like to utilize macros because I like the flexibility. I like to have more variety, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Obviously, certain people you wouldn't give macros because they would eat chocolate 5 meals a day. But like, if you know you can trust a certain athlete with, you know, picking their food sources and stuff like that, then macros is ideal. Whereas some people want to be on a meal plan, they don't want to have to think, but that's completely down to the individual, you know.
I remember when Tom said to me with off season when my appetite was fucking up, he was like, "Oh, maybe we should try switching to if it fits your macros." And I was like, "Don't take my structure away. Don't
Structure.
don't take my routine away. You want me to decide every meal what to eat? Like that's I like knowing every single day this is what I'm eating.
Absolutely.
Because I'm a bit like I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what works
on the
for you,
spectrum.
You know? Yeah.
So I'm a nutritionist, and I still like, so in my off season I've got my food plan but with the macros. So I mean I pretty much eat the same thing every day, but it means that if I want to be flexible, it's so easy to do it. In prep, no, tell me exactly what I'm eating and I will eat that. And even if you change it to something that I don't like, I'll still eat it because it's prep. And that's just that.
Yeah. Yeah, again, it just ultimately comes down to the individual and what works for them, you know.
Yeah, and there's integrated responses to that. You said the athlete there, you know, so depending on the athlete, that's so important because I've worked with people that have done the reverse out on a food plan, had some off plan with the post show, and then slowly try an off plan with my complete guidance. And then maybe we change, like, you know, a couple of the meals to macro tracking and then a couple of the meals stay on a food plan. And you can start to integrate. And then, you know, maybe by the end of their off season, they're completely, if it fits your macros, because they feel they can trust themselves as well and they have the education. So it's super important, you know, throughout this pod, we've said how it is so individual and so person dependent. Now, I want to ask you all a question just because I'm so interested in this. You're like, what is it? I want to ask you all, what I know Emily's, but what's the highest your calories and macros have been, and what's the lowest in a prep? I want to know. I love this shit.
I think
in a prep.
In a prep,
you mean like at the end of prep?
Yeah.
So my lowest was my first, and it was, I think it was between 800 and 900 calories on a rest day and like maybe 100 calories more on a training day. My highest for a bikini athlete is maybe a little bit high. So I think with last year, I don't think I went under 2,200.
But you got up to?
So no, it went in last year in my, like literally the week before I got on stage, I think I was still on 2,200.
Fucking brilliant.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But now, so this is the thing that worries me is when I start prep this year, I'm like, oh my God, what happens if I have to go lower than that?
And your highest in off season?
3,800.
Which is very good for bikini.
That's mad.
Yeah. That's
really, really like food.
I just really
I think in off season I struggle when it gets above 3,800. Like 3,600 to 3,800 is about my appetite limit before I start missing meals because I just can't eat.
I do think it helps because I'm in the gym so much because we get in here at 6 a.m. and we're not leaving till 8 p.m. and I don't have my final meal till I get home. So if you think about the number, so I'm essentially in work for 14 hours. So if you think about the number of hours I could spread my meals out, it's a little bit different on a rest day. I do, then I'm force feeding myself.
And I'm guessing, Emily, with that, you're walking around the gym a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I
Because
like with having 3 dogs as well, it's multiple dog
Yeah.
walks and stuff. So I don't sit down very often.
it's like for the majority of my bodybuilding, well, especially as a pro, my job was stagnant. I was at a desk for 12 hours. So yeah, the shifts are long, but I'm just sitting on my ass with a 3-minute walk around the building every hour. It's not the same. And that's, I don't know, now I'm full-time bodybuilding, maybe we can go higher in the off season because I can have those walks post meal. I think for prep wise for me, I can't remember previous preps. I'm not very good at remembering numbers, but for this Olympia prep, we got down to 1,200 on a rest day, 1,400 on a training day, and it was 90 minutes of cardio on top of that, as well as obviously my training sessions. That was shit. That was shit. And
lowest was probably my first or second year where I had to go around the 800 calorie mark. But last year I think was very similar to Euro, about the 1,200, 1,100 mark. And highest was probably when I worked at Asda, and I was obviously working in a fridge doing like 30,000 plus steps a day. And I think I was on like, I can know the macros, probably about 185 protein. I think it was roughly about 1,000 carb and then 45 fat, just from how high my expenditure was. And I can't even remember, but that was probably way over 4,000 calories. But now I'm full-time bodybuilder, I'm about the 3.8 mark. And that just fits really nicely. I've got no digestive issues from that. You know, food goes in well. So yeah, like in a really good place with it. But definitely higher in a couple of years ago when my expenditure was through the roof. But now I can control it much more. It's just a little bit easier to get a more easy number in because yeah.
It's finding that balance, isn't it, with off season? It's like you don't want so much expenditure that you can't actually gain weight because you're moving too much, but you also don't want to be sat on your ass for 12 hours having to put food on top of food on top of food without being able to move that food around.
Yeah, exactly.
What I will
What about you?
Well, the lowest it went, because I'm trying to remember what I would have done right at the fucking start. I should have looked at
I can't remember.
Like, what was it 12 fucking years ago? But the last prep, I did just under 1,000 calories for 13 weeks with, you know, like you said, Mana, with the expenditure.
13 weeks?
Yeah, mate, fucking hell.
Wow.
This is why my focus was health. Because, you know, my fucking stimulant use was through the roof. I do look back, and I'm sure you can relate. I look back and I think, how the fuck did I do that? Like, every day was fucking wild, you know. It was like 2 hours sleep and all the cardio, 20,000 steps a day, all of this. Anyway, I won't be going back to that territory again, girls. But yeah, that was the lowest for, especially for an extended period of time as well. So that was the lowest, and then unless it was lower at the start, but I think that's about it. And then I got to like 3.5, but that was it was quite hard because it was all whole foods. Like, this was like really when I was like, has to be all whole food. So it was like loads of potato and like loads of stuff that really
potato in volume.
Yeah, I was like, I need to, and my fiber, right? This is, I don't know how this even fucking happened, girls. My fiber went up to like 75 to 80. Now I'm sure that's a little bit high.
Emily's like, no,
it's because most people struggle to get like just 25.
I know.
That's ridiculous.
Just like scooping psyllium husk into your mouth.
So it was a 3,500, but it wasn't as enjoyable as it could have been. Obviously, there was rice and stuff there as well, and a bit of jam and whatever. But when it's volume through potatoes and veggies and that, it's not a good move. Not a good move.
Bulk of those calories just came from fiber.
Yeah, fiber and water. Yeah,
it is like you say though, Emily. I have clients that are like, I cannot get 20 grams, and I'm like, right, let's just tinker things around a bit here. It's pretty easy when you select the right foods, but for sure, you know, yeah, I used to think having more would be better. I'm like, yeah, this is like a PB today, 80 grams.
What's fiber and what's vegetables?
Well,
Emily, your head's gonna like I am so bad. I can't eat like green vegetables.
Oh,
I
no.
don't like.
no.
I don't. Dan's like, will you please have some
You too.
broccoli?
I'm the same. I'm the same.
Will you have some spinach? Like, no, it gives me stomachache. I can't, like, certain textures. I'm just like, oof,
What
no.
about root
The
veg?
bikini girls are like, ah! And we're like, nah, fuck vegetables.
What was that, Sarah?
All the bikini girls are like, oh, fuck vegetables. And I'm like, nah, fuck it.
You're like, I'm
like,
gonna have carrots.
I can't. No, don't like them. Don't like carrots.
What
Any
about
veg?
sweet corn?
No, that's bad.
Sweet
corn. Veg.
Bad.
It's
Oh,
veg.
bloody love sweet
Very
corn.
bad. I'll have fruit, so I'll have like peaches or raspberries
Oh.
or cherries.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something about vegetables.
Sarah, do you have any vegetables? Come on.
I'm much like Ro, actually. I eat like a ton of fruit, but veggies, like, if chicken's a vegetable, then I eat loads of it.
Yeah.
What about
I
in
mean-
prep when fruit's really? I don't know if you eat any fruit when you're at the heart of prep, but do you eat veg then? Or?
Nope.
So last
You know,
year,
you make things harder for yourself because you have like no food volume.
so back in like last year, I wouldn't have any veggies because the year before I ate so many veggies that it fucked my stomach up. So I won't go about that.
Yeah,
So I was
yeah.
literally just eating protein in a bowl.
Dan keeps buying me greens powders, and I can't drink them because I don't like the taste.
But
I've got greens tablets that I just forget to take.
what if
And
you
in my
cut
head,
up veg? But if you cut it up really, really small and put it in like a
Emily's
sort
like,
of-
please.
Yeah. Emily, how about we just pay you to cut some veggies up and just send it our way? You're
yeah,
like,
grate them. I'll grate
my
the vegetables
logic
for you.
is my logic is chicken eats grain. Grain is a vegetable.
It's like when people
Cows.
say wine comes from grapes and grapes are fruit. Yeah, right, guys. Well done. Yeah. If only we lived in this ideal world.
Cows eat grass. Grass is green.
vegetable.
And because I eat grass every day, just put it on my plate, call it a vegetable.
Well, you can
I'm
see
so-
that, of course, we're all very different, guys.
Yeah,
Ooh, okay.
I'm not
It's like, I'm gonna go
advocating
home
not
and cry.
eating vegetables, everyone. I'm not
Yeah.
advocating. It's not big. It's
Disclaimer,
not
you
clever.
should eat 5 a day.
It's not big. It's not clever.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll increase our vegetable uptake, and I'll take a video
Yeah,
of every
please.
vegetable that I eat and send it to you.
Yeah, tag me in it on social media.
Yeah. Full day
There's
vegan dates.
Yeah,
There's just going to be
vegetable
like
influencer.
Everyone's
there's going to be a piece
like,
of
where's the
piece of
donut?
broccoli.
Yeah.
What? Why are
That's
you
funny.
fucking tagging vegetables? We want donuts, people. I'm
There'll
gonna
be
put
like, you know, the tiny little bulb on the end of a piece of broccoli. That minuscule little.
Yeah.
I'm just going to send Emily a photo of one of them in my chicken and rice. And a
I've done it.
vegetable.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
I love it. I love it. Now, I will put all of our Instagram handles in the description. Of course, if our new gang that are forming from following the first one that we did, the Roundtable, then if you want to share it on your stories, we got a lot of love last time, didn't we, girls? And it was super, super cool. So hopefully that continues. And of course, Emily, thanks for joining the craziness today. You know, you never know what's going to
Anytime.
happen.
Nah,
We're
it's
just
true.
neurotic bodybuilders.
Been good. Yeah, well.
Indeed.
And of course, thank you,
No
Mana
filter.
and Sara, as always, for your support. And I will speak to you all soon.
Absolutely. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey!